Early Weigh-In podcast is back and going down this Saturday night. Last pay-per-view of the year, Las Vegas. We got UFC 310 flyweight strap up for grabs. We got defending champ Alexandre Pantoja taking on, the rising champ, the newcomer, and Kai Asakura, and big-time welterweight number one contender, Shafkat. Kind of playing it risky here. Had a title shot, champion pulled out, and here he is still taking another fight against undefeated Ian Gary. Super good fight. Really ready for that, man. 14 fights for us to get into. Throw it over to you to start everything off.
Taking a look back at both of our weeks real quick. Neither one of us did good. Still in this little bit of a slump.
Oh, yeah.
You had two straight bets, Kenan Song and Jose Ochoa. Man, it's been a couple weeks. Don't remember either one of those fights.
Like a Muslim spin kick, Kenan Song in the head.
Yes, okay, I do remember that one. And then you had a parlay for 2 units, fight not to start round 3 in the Diaz-Zhang fight, and fight doesn't go the distance in the Mahachete-Nicholas Mata fight. I don't know what was up with that, but that started off the night, and I feel like we both knew it was just not going to be a good one. Minus 2 units there. Song wins by TKO, plus 550, a little stab. You did hit this parlay with Piotr Jan and Carlos Hernandez, both to win for 1 unit at plus money. And then Feng to win inside the distance. Ming Shi made herself a star overnight, Only minus 3.2 units, though. Certainly nothing terrible. Looking over my card, I only got one straight bet in for 2 units. I was on Volkan Oezdemir. Looks like Carlos beat him up over 3 rounds pretty easily. So not the side. Minus 2 units for me. Slump continues, but we are trying to turn things around for these last 2 events right here.
Would be nice.
All right. Starting us off in the heavyweight division, we have Kennedy Nzechukwu taking on Lucas Brzeski. Brzeski 1-4 in the UFC. Doesn't look great, man. He's a little slow. Doesn't have the greatest build for the division. And Kennedy Nzechukwu, although I'm not completely sold on him, I do think that his frame will allow him to go pretty far in the heavyweight division for what it's worth. I think as long as the UFC is willing to give him matchups like Chris Barnett and Brzeski, he's going to continue to roll and just be the longer, more athletic, little bit faster guy. He is subject to shit in the apple pie, though. There are holes in his game. So not betting him at this price tag, but I do think that he wins this fight against Brzeski.
Yeah, man, not too much I can add to it. Like you kind of said, shitting in the apple pie. It's, the OSP fight comes to mind. Then you talk about the Dong Jung and Dustin Jacoby, where he just kind of doesn't show up, gets knocked out in the first round. So it's never really a guy you want to lay like minus 600 on. But he's better everywhere in this fight. I feel like the only way it's close is if it goes to a decision. Brzeski has some decent volume, but he's not a very scary guy. Doesn't pack a ton of power, and getting knocked out by old Mick Parkin was not a good look. So I like Kennedy. I like Kennedy inside the distance. Maybe the under 2.5, something I'm looking at, but Kennedy should get the job done. Clay Guida, Chase Hooper at 155. The line's out of control. Chase Hooper's not a guy that I'd ever really bet at plus or minus 1,000, but Guida's also not somebody who is going to be a significantly better striker, where I think Chase Hooper's, defensive striking is his worst attribute. I feel like these guys are going to get tangled up on the mat. I like Chase Hooper's scrambling ability. I think he can match him in the cardio and really kind of seems to perform better at 155. You can kind of see it going similar to the grappling fight, man. Clay Guida, it's hard for me to not think this dude's going to shoot a takedown over 15 minutes. And when he does, I just feel like Chase Hooper's submission ability on the mat's a little bit too much. So I think this is going to be the 12th time I think Guida gets submitted. So it's not really a hot take. I got Chase Hooper by sub.
Yeah, I don't hate that at all. And not to mention Chase Hooper's is coming off of maybe career best striking performance against Vladislav Boryshev. Yeah. He absolutely dominated there. So I understand the hype coming behind him into this matchup. You're right. It's happened 12 times before. So I do also agree with the line as far as Chase Hooper should win. But you're right. He's not the type of guy. Even now, as he's kind of developing his game, he's still somewhat one-dimensional in how we think he's going to get it done. And so I don't really want to trust him at minus 1,200 because of that. Right. Hooper's the pick, though. Moving up the card to the welterweight division, Michael Chiesa taking on Max Griffin. Stylistically, this is a favorable matchup for Michael Chiesa.
Yeah.
He is coming off a good one for his confidence level, beating Tony Ferguson. There's very few people that I think Chiesa can beat in the division at this point in his career. Tony Ferguson is one of them, and Max Griffin is possibly another one. Man, if Griffin hadn't had trouble with wrestlers his entire career, this would be a pretty easy pick for me. His frequency of fighting and everything else, it just makes me think that he's a little bit more in the prime of his career. He's familiar with the game still, where Chiesa's taking the time off. He's kind of doing the extracurriculars, and I feel like his mind is not fight focused right now. Griffin coming off of the Jeremiah Wells win, it was a split decision, but Wells, a heavy wrestler, probably a little bit stronger, and Max was able to make him work. I feel like if you just make Chiesa work for those first 2 rounds, we'll see him wilt later on, and I could definitely see Griffin getting the finish late or a close 29-28 decision. I do think that he'll probably lose the first round, though. Chiesa's a big boy, knows how to wrestle.
Earlier in the week, I was kind of on the Max Griffin side. I kind of agree with the money that's coming on the Chiesa side. At least to me, I feel like he has in hindsight, he's the one that's going to look the favorite. I feel like if he does land the takedowns that everybody else, that Jeremiah Wells is landing, Chiesa's jiu-jitsu is very, very good. And even at welterweight, he's very big. And he has the ability to, pretty much like Aljo, great back taker, can sink in the body triangle. And I think that's the round for Max Griffin. It's Max Griffin's also a guy who's never been submitted before. So that makes things a little bit interesting. He's a 30-fight vet, never being submitted. And I do think that's the way Chiesa would probably win this fight. But also, Max isn't really the type that I think presses enough to kind of deter Chiesa. I think Chiesa can kind of skirt around the outside. If Max kind of would push the pace more, get in his face, Mike doesn't like to get hit. So it kind of just depends on how much Max Griffin's willing to come at him. But I think the most likely path to me is Chiesa winding up on top, man. Chiesa getting the backpack and riding out some minutes. So I'm going to keep going with Max Griffin doesn't get submitted, and I think Chiesa's going to steal a decision with the grappling. Moving up to a fight I'm super excited for, man. Cody Durden versus Joshua Van. Guys been talking crap, calling each other out on Twitter for a while now. Josh Van, kind of a hard guy for me to bet at chalk when he's gone out there and dropped the first round in almost all of his UFC fights. He's also a guy who, at 23, I like the activity, but here recently, man, almost a little bit too active for the damage that he's taken in these fights. Borjas is dropping him. Chairez hurt him really bad. Charles Johnson knocked him out. Just kind of, in my opinion, needs to slow down a little bit before he gets the chin damaged for his future, because I think he's a pretty bright prospect. His boxing is really, really good, extremely good cardio, builds into fights almost like a Peter Yan. When he gets his reads, he sees you slowing down, he really starts to put it on you. He's got great body work. Even dating back to the regional scene, though, man, it hasn't been tested so much in the UFC, but I'm really worried about his defensive grappling. Felipe Bunes really didn't have the cardio to exploit it for all 3 rounds, where I think Cody Durden absolutely has it to potentially at least do it for 3. Cody goes so hard that he kind of does tend to slow down, but he fights through it pretty hard, man. I just think his grappling is going to be enough in this fight. So one of them kind of where, just like the Max Griffin fight, I was kind of on Joshua Van earlier in the week. I even have him in our fantasy league, but I might actually find myself on Cody Durden at dog money. It's hard to pass up a wrestler at plus money in my eyes, man. I feel like if he gets him down, it could be easy work.
So I'm on the Josh Van side here. I actually think that we're kind of getting him at a steal of a price tag. There is a world where I guess, Cody does wrestle fucking for 15 minutes, but Josh makes people work well enough that I am pretty confident that he will get to his feet multiple times. And Durden, to me, maybe a little soft in the body. I feel like Josh, with his body work, could really wear on him, especially if he makes him continue to have to take him down. Those later rounds, I think the body shots will pay off, and I think he could make him fold. So I had Josh late here, and then possibly just a 29-28 decision. Should be a good fight, though. It's one that I think Josh is the rightful favorite, but I think the line's almost appropriate, maybe minus 150. So Van's the pick for me, but not sure if there's any meat left on the bone as far as the line goes.
So, Cody loves to get submitted, and you've been saying since he came into the UFC that Joshua Van's gonna fucking submit somebody.
Yeah, it could be the time, dude.
What's plus 800 to you? You like it?
I don't hate that at all, honestly. Plus 900 on FanDuel right now.
Hey, so there you go.
Yeah, maybe a little stab there if I can't find the money line play.
As soon as you don't play it, it's gonna hit.
100%. Okay, moving on to a catchweight bout at 195 pounds. We broke this one down a couple weeks ago. Chris Weidman versus Eric Anders. You sure what happened with Anders? Was it a weight cutting issue?
I think he made weight fine. I think he was some type of sickness or something.
Okay, so I don't know. I guess not.
Could be weight cut related. I'm sure it's not too healthy to drain your body of 30 pounds of water.
Yeah, very true. I still hold the same opinion as I did the other week. I think Weidman is kind of better everywhere. Anders is a type of guy where if he's going to win, he has to win cleanly for 15 minutes, or he has to win, put together a perfect fight. And those 15 minutes usually aren't the prettiest, where I think Chris Weidman could come out here and dust Eric Anders, and it wouldn't be too surprising for me. I just can't see the inverse happening. So give me Chris Weidman here. He's probably a minus 130 in my eyes. Still not something that I'm exactly trying to jump on here.
So I kind of feel like the other way around. I do feel like Chris is the better fighter everywhere. I feel like he's got the better wrestling, the better jiu-jitsu. Cardio is probably a little bit equal at these points in their careers. And I think Chris has developed a pretty good kicking game on the outside that he can keep Eric at bay with. But I feel like with the durability issues we've maybe seen of Chris, that's Eric who could come in here and land a good left hand that puts Chris away. I feel like it's Chris who's going to have a pretty clean 15 minutes. But I just, in my opinion, both these guys are far past their prime, and I don't really want my money on either one of the two. I was on Eric Anders the first time around, but getting sick, having to return around a fight, not being able to make 185 again, it's just a bunch of red flags that would not make me bet it this time around. So I'm actually going to flip to the other side, pick Chris Weidman here. Randy Brown, Brian Battle at 170. This is a freaking solid fight, man. Big fans of both these guys. I really like Brian Battle. I like his style, man. I like the way he gets in your face. He's not afraid to make it a brawl. He's pretty slick on the mat. Tough dude, man, but I'm just not in love with this price. I feel like outside of Renat Fakhreddina, Brian Battle has kind of fought some lower-level guys where Randy Brown stood across from some really top competition. The guys who are finishing him outside of Nico Price's kind of meme finish are guys like Vicente Luque and Jack Della Maddalena, guys who are really, really good with their boxing, really technical about getting on the inside. And I don't know if Brian Battle's technical enough to get on the inside, but I do think he's got the heart, durability, the willingness to take a punch to be able to get in on the inside and land on Randy. And I think that's what it would absolutely take for Brian. But, man, at range, I feel like Randy Brown might be a little too much for him, man. A little bit too fast, a little bit too athletic, a little bit too seasoned. Excellent submission game. I'm probably going to take a dog shot on Randy Brown. So that's who I'm going to side with.
So I don't necessarily disagree with your take on the guys who are finishing Randy Brown or kind of that upper echelon, Luque all the way back then, Jack Della Maddalena now. But even the fights that Randy Brown is winning, he's making those way too close for comfort. The Wellington Turman fight, even the Jared Gooden fight, and then he's kind of lucked out matchmaking-wise with Zaleski dos Santos and Salikov, Trinaldo. Those are all really favorable matchups that I think right now Brian Battle would absolutely dominate and finish. Actually get the finish, and it wouldn't be a close fight like we've seen with Randy. Randy consistently fails to pull away from fights that he should absolutely dominate in, and I don't think that Battle is going to give him is going to push a good enough. I think that Battle will push a good enough pace to where it makes Randy uncomfortable, not get into that groove that he usually finds with these slower, older guys. And I do think that Battle should win this. I am a little worried. We talked about earlier, Battle's coming in with a big cut over his eye. And if that opens up like optics, it's not going to look great. But I do think that I give him the edge in pace pushing, which ultimately I think will determine who wins this fight.
Yeah. Spot on with Randy fighting close.
Yeah. He's a tough one where if at least he's plus money here. He's not the type of fighter you want to bet at juice.
And I was dead wrong about the last one, but I bet you said it like plus 140. So it's a hard sell for me to pass on Randy Brown at a very similar price, you know.
I feel that. Moving up the card. Shoot, we're all right, just halfway through this card right now. The featherweight division, Movsar Evloev, 18-0, taking on Aljamain Sterling, who's 24-4. This is an awesome fight. Kind of wild that it's not on the main card. Like I think that this should be switched out for the Bryce Mitchell Kron Gracie fight. Don't really understand why it's not.
Yeah,
Movsar, not somebody who finishes people for the most part, so it's tough to bet him at juice. Aljo, kind of the same story, and I feel like he's up against somebody who is a true 145er, has a lot of similar attributes to his game, and Evloev will likely sneak out this decision. I think that there'll be some pretty good grappling sequences, but ultimately I think that Evloev is just he's built for the division a little bit better, and I think that he edges out Sterling in just about everywhere, enough that he's going to get the nod. Not sure which rounds he's going to win. Sterling can really change things up if he gets a backpack for even one round. He's not coming off, so There's always that, but I think Evloev gets the edge just about everywhere. I'll take him.
Yeah, I'm on the Evloev side as well, but you started off, perfectly saying it, that you don't want to lay juice on a guy who doesn't finish his fights. And not only that, it's just a super, super high-level fight for someone to be minus 250. I kind of learned my lesson with the Aljo Peter Yan fight. It's one round of Aljo's backpack, and the fight is, back to being a 50-50 fight. I don't really know what to take from Aljo's fight with Calvin Kattar. He looked really good. Calvin Kattar really didn't stand a chance, but I don't know what to think of Calvin Kattar after all these wars in his upper 30s and things. I feel like that might have just been a really good matchup for Aljo to come in here. And now he's got a guy who's an absolute dominating wrestler on the juice, has been in deep submission attempts multiple times, is not going to quit on himself. I just feel like once they lock up, there's going to be a significant strength advantage for Movsar. But again, Aljo's just a Weasley veteran, someone who's made himself a champion, defended it before. So at the end of the day, man, it's a high-level fight. Picking Movsar, I just not in love with the price. Don't want to lay the big juice. I'm going to have a play on our next fight here, Vicente Luque, Themba Gorimbo at 170. I'm sure everybody's going to say it this week, man, if this was not even really a prime Vicente Luque, maybe just the one before the Jeff Neal fight, and it's a big bet on him at plus money, But here recently, he talked about it after the RDA fight. He was scared to get hit after the brain bleed. And then the whole Buckley fight, you and I referenced it numerous times talking. I don't know, man. Fishy might not be the right word for it because he doesn't seem like the type to pull a stunt, but dude just didn't want to get hit. Maybe seemed like he got hurt way too easy, folded up and went home, took his paycheck, and UFC kind of pushing them, but this would be a big win for him, kind of a high profile win that they're trying to get him. But man, Themba's strong. Themba's an athlete, but I think skill-wise, man, I still feel like Vicente's a little bit better, man. Even on the inside, I feel like his boxing is much sharper. I feel like his submission grappling is much better. If he wasn't shot, I'd be all over Vicente Luque. But I think I'm just ultimately going to take plus money on fight doesn't go the distance. If Vicente's shot, he's going to maybe fold up and quit again. Or he's, just way better than Themba and puts him away like I think he can. But, plus money, welterweight, someone on short notice, someone potentially shot, plus money. I think it's good for a unit.
I think you might have found the best angle on this fight, P, for real. Narrative-wise, this is all going towards Gorimbo. And we talked about, like the Luque-Buckley fight being a little bit sketchy. this is like a perfect opportunity for Garimbo to capitalize on the name of somebody like Luque, who is obviously on a decline. The biggest, let's say that it wasn't a dive that he took in the Buckley fight. What happened is he got put on his back and he looked for zero opportunities to get back to his feet. And I feel like Garimbo's the type of fighter where he will consistently try and put you on your back. And if you don't have the will to want to get up over and over again, he could certainly melt you. So, and then on top of all that, Luque always dangerous with his Darce choke. He does have some sneaky submissions, so there is some finishing upside for him as well. I like the under in this fight as well, but I do think that Garimbo is probably the side, regardless of how this plays out, whether it goes over or under.
With you.
Let's see. Continuing to go up for the headliner of the prelims, Anthony Lionheart-Smith taking on Dominic Reyes. This is my first 100% I'm making a bet on it. I'm going to be betting Anthony Smith here. I am not convinced that Dom Reyes is back after beating Dustin Jacoby. Jacoby is one of those guys where if he doesn't show up one night, he is going to look terrible. And I think that just happened to be the night that he fought Dominic Reyes. Reyes is coming off of 3 losses in a row by knockout, all of them extremely brutal. And I would have to see him over the course of 15 minutes to really be sold. Anthony Smith, like 60 fights. He's certainly an experienced fighter. And like we saw in the Victor Petrino fight, he could be getting his ass kicked, and he really only needs one opportunity to capitalize on. And for what it's worth, I think he's a better grappler than Dominic Reyes. And the chin issues of Reyes is concerning enough for me to take a plus 290 shot on Anthony Smith, who we've seen beat top title contenders, top 10 guys somewhat consistently over the past decade. So give me Anthony Lionheart-Smith plus 290. That price tag is also the reason why I'm playing it,
Yeah. That part I 100% understand. This is the price tag that you play Anthony Lionheart-Smith at. I think they're absolutely both past their prime. Both not making a title run, both dodgy chins, man. I feel like Dom's too fast still at this point, hits a little bit too hard. His hands are a little bit too good. And I don't think he's shooting any takedowns to let Anthony Smith lock up some guillotine or anything on. I feel like it plays out on the feet. It might even go over, truth be told. It might, which is lined at 1.5. I think it could even slip over that. I'm not really confident in Dominic Reyes, but I think he might have got his confidence back a little bit with that win. And I think this is not somebody with huge power that might be able to capitalize on the chin of Dominic Reyes. So,
hey, Anthony Smith gets that jab going, he might flatline him, just like the Spann fight. That's what I keep thinking about. It was a power jab that dusted him. I just can't trust it anymore.
Can't trust him at all, and especially at like minus 350 or whatever it is. So complete pass, stay away fight for me. But I feel pretty confident that I think Dom Reyes wins this one. Kicking off pay-per-view, UFC knows, man. Du Hoi Choi, you already got a fight in the UFC Hall of Fame, and Clarksville's own Nate the Train, Nate Landwehr, baby. Fight should be fireworks from the start. I told you earlier, I'm a little bit worried about the first 2.5 minutes. Kind of seems like Nate needs to get hit to woke up a little bit sometimes to get into a fight, and sometimes he gets hit and goes down with the first punch. I'm a little bit worried because Du Hoi Choi, I think he's a lot faster than Nate with his hands. I think his boxing's a little bit sharper. And probably has more likely to end the fight with shots on the feet. But I just feel like it has to happen within like 2 or 3 minutes. If it doesn't happen with 2 or 3 minutes, I feel like Nate's going to get into his game, his pressure, his pace going forward. It's going to start to work, man. It's going to start to get into his game. Du Hoi Choi is going to get on the back foot. Be nice to see Nate mixing some takedowns. I'm considering a Nate bet, but I'm really looking at like a 2-3 prop on him just so the way he fights. I think that pace is going to eventually break Du Hoi Choi. So Nate, 2-3 sub, Nate the Train, excellent interview, kicking off the pay-per-view on Saturday.
Yeah, I think that this is one of the steals of the card here, man. Like there could be some Tennessee bias in this opinion, but I do think that Nate Landwehr is the side here. A fight that I can't get out of my head is the Du Hoi Choi Cub Swanson fight. I think if you put Nate Landwehr in the same position as Cub Swanson in that fight, he gets the finish. You know, Nate pushes a type of pace that I haven't seen from very many featherweights. And like you said, like barring a flash knockout, which is always the case for a Nate Landwehr fight, you know, like that's always what you're buying into already. So that's nothing new. Every other scenario, I think he wipes the floor with Du Hoi Choi here, man. Yeah, on top of it all, like you're not going to, Du Hoi Choi doesn't have the option to take him down if he does get caught or does start to get tired. Nate Landwehr is going to make him work. I love the late round props, but truthfully, I think I'm just going to lay 2 units on him at minus 130 and hope for the best, man. I really do like Nate Landwehr here. Hope he starts off the card with an awesome fight.
Yeah.
Moving on to another, country boy right here, Bryce Mitchell taking on Kron Gracie, still at 145 pounds. This is an odd one, man, because Bryce Mitchell is coming off of a huge knockout loss. For the majority of his fights, he is a top-time wrestler, and he's going up against somebody in Kron Gracie who, needs it to get to the ground to be able to win. And I don't really love the idea of Bryce Mitchell putting together 15 minutes of striking. I don't think that looks pretty. And if he does resort to his grappling, there is always a chance for a submission to happen. I don't think being a somewhat one-dimensional fighter and coming off of a huge knockout loss, I want to lay minus 900 on somebody who is going to bring the fight into the only realm that Kron Gracie could win this in. And so for me, it's a Kron Gracie, sub or a Kron Gracie straight plus 600. Like, just don't get greedy. I think that there's plenty of opportunity for him to get sweeps and ride out rounds. He's not a huge top guy, but I do think that his pure jiu-jitsu is probably better. And Bryce Mitchell, maybe not the highest IQ for a game plan. So I don't know, man. This is one where it's a complete layoff, or I'm taking the stab on the dog. What do you think about this?
I'm probably going to lay off, man. Bryce 100% does not have nowhere near the striking of a Cub Swanson or a Charles Jourdain to be able to keep Kron at range and beat him up on the feet. But I do think it's possible. It's just hard for me to think that Bryce isn't going to mix in a takedown somewhere within a 15-minute fight. That's just what he always does. And when you do, you're playing with fire with the Gracie. And Kron Gracie's, excellent with the fundamentals. He's got a super, super good guillotine. And, if Bryce is shooting a sloppy attempt, if he gets – I've seen him submit somebody in half guard with his guillotine from bottom in clips before. So I don't know, man. I would never lay minus 900 on Bryce Mitchell when he doesn't have anywhere near the advantage on the feet that I would like him to have. So hairy fight, man. I'm picking Bryce, but not going to have my money anywhere near it. Moving up to 265, we got a rematch at heavyweight between Cyril Gane and Alexander Volkov. Volkov, I think, looked a lot better lately, man. Looks a lot more, I don't want to say, muscular, I guess, a little bit more fit. He's sitting down on his jab and things a lot more. I think Volkov's made some serious improvements and still has that motivation to hold the belt one day. Whereas that's something I can kind of question for Cyril Gane, who's had his belt opportunities, lost it to Francis, came out and, shit an egg against John Jones. So I kind of wonder where his head is at. But I do think that there's a 75% chance that this fight plays out exactly like it did last time, where it's a close fight on the feet, but Cyril just has more volume, is too quick, a little bit too powerful, a little bit too, his footwork's twice as good as Alexander Volkov. So 29-28, 30-27. I just feel like Cyril Gane by decision hits at a significantly high clip here, man. So that's how I see it.
I just personally, it's a heavyweight fight, so the margin of error is already super small. And then on top of it, like, if we can kind of agree that there's a good possibility that Gane drops one of these 3 rounds, I think Volkov plus 295 kind of makes sense, Like, don't see Gane finishing And you're right. Like Volkov, to me, coming off that win off of Sergey Pavlovich, and from what I've seen in the embeddeds, he does look a whole lot leaner. And I know that the knee injury is a little concerning coming into this one, but the workouts that he was doing, it's obvious he's not dealing with that anymore. He looks good. So, I mean, for him to be like a true veteran of the game, get an opportunity for a rematch here, I got to think that he is able to come in with a game plan that should correct at least some of the issues that he had in the first one. Plus 295, a high-level fight at heavyweight with the margin of error, I think that makes a lot of sense. So I'll probably be on 2 plus 90s with Anthony Smith and with Alexander Volkov. Don't feel great about either one of them, but I think it's warranted given the price tag.
Yep.
Moving on to the co-main event, Shavkat Rakhmonov taking on Ian Machado Gary at 170 pounds. Both these guys undefeated fighters. And, you know, I've got Shavkat in the fantasy league, and I just, you know, got a weird feeling about it, man. It seems like this is a good opportunity for him to kind of shit the bed. You know, he looked good submitting Stephen Thompson, but Ian Gary at this point in his career fights a lot like Stephen Thompson, just with a better takedown defense. You know, I think that there's a pretty good chance that Ian Gary will be the faster of the two. And if he could stick to the outside and skirt around the cage for 15 minutes, there's a world where he wins this fight. That being said, if there's anybody who's going to go out there and dominantly win this fight, it's going to be Shavkat. And I think that that's why we're seeing him as a favorite. There's a little bit of hype surrounding him, just, you know, in the MMA world, his last name being OV. You know, I think that there's a lot of reasons why he is a favorite, but I do think that he's the rightful favorite. I think he wins this 60% of the time, just not 80% of the time. So for me, it's Shavkat, but I, you know, don't feel great about it, if I'm being honest.
When do you get 20% betting edge? You got to bet Ian Gary. I
know.
You know my thoughts on Ian Gary, man. I've bet the guy pretty much every single fight. The guy gets a bad rep for his, you know, marriage situation, for his shit in the media on the mic, but I think he's a very, very fucking good fighter who's very experienced, who's been 5 rounds in Cage Warriors, you know, who's come to the UFC and really showed me a really good game plan, a high IQ fight. He's willing to travel around the world, get coached, get better. Ian Machado Gary is somebody who me is 100% in this game and wants nothing more. The way he talks, the way he speaks, his confidence, I think the guy believes it, and I think it's almost sort of dangerous how much belief that he has in himself. And I think there's a significant striking advantage and speed advantage for him. I love that this one's in a big cage for him. I think so. 5 rounds for me. I think it's tricky because I think Gary has more 5-round experience. I think his cardio is better, but I do think someone as dangerous as Shavkat, I would have preferred a 3-round fight for Gary. It just kind of feels like that gives Shavkat 10 more minutes to land something, to snatch up a front choke, to just find some way to finish the fight like he has all 18 of the others before, whether it's the Jeff Neal with 2 minutes left, slipping behind the back. It's, you know, he's just a very crafty, dangerous finisher. But even on the regional scene, I've seen this guy wobbled and on skates before, and I'm not saying, you know, I think Ian Gary could do that, man. I think the line's wide. I think you said it spot on. I think I can get to Shavkat 65%, but I cannot get to 80%. I think it's a high-level fight. You got 2 guys who have never lost before, who are super confident in their skills. And I don't know, man. You know, these guys have trained before it at Sanford. Ian Gary's not taking this opportunity if he doesn't think that he can win this, if he hasn't had moments in the gym that gives himself belief that he can go up and win this fight and put himself number 1 in line. So I'm on Ian Gary this week, man. I think I'm going to have 1.5 units at plus 280, plus 290, whatever I can get. And maybe come fight day, the OV gets him in some parlays and I can even get 300 on Ian Gary. That'd be pretty nice.
You can get plus 310 on him right now, and I encourage you to do it, dude.
I'll absolutely be having at least a unit and a half on it. Yeah, you know, he's printed me money all through the UFC before, and hardly ever going to ever get a price tag on him like this. So I'll be on the Ian Gary side, man. Main event, Alexandre Pantoja, Kai Asakura, me and you head to head in the fantasy league.
This is kind of for the fantasy
I was
league.
about to say, dude, winner here, taking home a decent pot here. You know, Pantoja's a dog, man. He's tough. He's taken some shots from Figueiredo, from other guys that makes me think that he's got an absolute granite chin. But if there's a flyweight out there that I think can crack the chin, that has the striking, the technicality, the power, and the size to put Alexandre Pantoja away, I think it's Kai Asakura, man. You also see Pantoja, the little shit in the media with him and Sean O'Malley's sparring session. Sean O'Malley, stops him with the body shot. Kai Asakura has great body shots, great uppercuts. He does plenty of attacks that deter guys from shooting takedowns on him. But his defensive grappling, I think his first level takedown defense is pretty solid. But once guys get on top of him, I'm a little bit worried that Alexandre Pantoja could be a little bit too much if he finds his way on top. And Kai's very defensively irresponsible as well himself. Pantoja, man, the more as I got into the week, I kind of started to lean Pantoja a little bit more confidently just because I think there's top time for grappling upside. And I told you earlier in the week, the Moreno fight, the Royval fight, the Steve Erceg fight, dude, Pantoja's had to win round 5 in every single one of those. And that dude's come out, dogged it out, land takedowns, done what he needs to do. And that's what you like to see in a champion. So I know if a fight gets close, if it gets hairy, if it gets into the 4th and 5th rounds, I feel like I can really trust Alexandre Pantoja to do what's necessary to win those rounds. But Kai early is equally live. So kind of flip-flap back and forth all week, man. They're not bringing Kai over for no reason. But I think I'm going to side with Pantoja, man. I think you're actually going to steal the points from me this week.
Yeah, so like you said, narrative-wise, they're not buying somebody off of one to come in here and lose. This is just the last option for the UFC. The other option is to make Moreno versus Pantoja 5, and I just don't think that they're interested in that. This obviously, how big Kai is, the highlight reels that you see online, he could be a flash in the pan and get a quick win right here. But just judging off of the durability and the consistency of Pantoja, I've really got to bank on him to be able to ride out that early attack of Kai. And the later that this fight goes, I think the more that this weight cut wears on Kai and Pantoja starts to take over. And then in any grappling scenario, I think that there's going to be plenty of opportunity for Pantoja to find the back and find the finish. He's a little older for the division, so that's obviously concerning. His time is approaching, but I haven't seen any signs of declining. So it's really tough to bank against him right here. I personally think that Kai is a little bit of what we see from most people who dominate on the Asian regional scene. He's had a few guys that have come from the UFC where he's dusted them, but they're not in the UFC anymore for a reason. It's people who I think that Pantoja does even worse. So, considering Pantoja still seems to be on the top of his game, I think that he's the rightful favorite. Hoping I do secure this fantasy league, and I've got Pantoja for sure.
Couldn't agree, man. Appreciate you guys hanging out with us. All 14 fights. It's the last pay-per-view of the year. Only one more event next week. UFC Tampa, Colby Covington, Joaquin Buckley. Thank you, boy. Bought some tickets there. Going to go attend the last UFC event of the year, see our buddy. So excited for you to get to experience that and trying to get back on track, man. It'd be nice to get in the green to finish out this year. Only 2 events left. Appreciate you guys hanging out with us. As always, like, subscribe to the video. We'll see you next week.
Peace.